Hi, friends. Welcome to week 5 of the Bible Together reading program at First Christian Church in Jefferson City, Missouri. This week, we have begun reading the book of Exodus, and we come there meeting God's people under oppression, not because they have failed in some way, but because they have been fruitful. If you remember when we left off at the end of Genesis, things were looking pretty good. Joseph had been reunited with his family, and he reconciled with the brothers who had betrayed him. The family had been saved from the famine, and it seemed like a happily ever after. But now, here in the book of Exodus, more than 400 years have passed. God has blessed the Israelites in Egypt, and the new Pharaoh, who did not know Joseph and has no special love for him or his family, fears the growth and prosperity that he sees in these outsiders who are living in his land, so he tightens his grip. The story of the liberation of God's people begins quietly, with women who resist, with midwives who fear God more than Pharaoh, and so they refuse to follow evil orders, with a mother who follows the letter of the law by placing her baby into the Nile, but resists by first placing him in a waterproof basket, with a sister who watches and waits and then works within the system to bring the baby back to his mother and even to get her a paycheck for nursing her own son. And Pharaoh's daughter participates in the rescue story of this little boy who will go on to lead God's people to freedom. Before there are plagues and grand spectacle, there are these small acts of courage. Moses grows up and eventually tries to bring freedom to his people the only way through that he can think of, through force. He sees an Egyptian mistreating a Hebrew, and so he kills that Egyptian. But afterwards he finds that even the Hebrews he hoped to protect and hoped to free, they reject him for that act, for that random violence of killing that Egyptian. So he takes off and flees into the wilderness. There is something that I noticed this week in the reading that I never paid much attention to before. When God finally calls Moses years later to return to Egypt, Moses goes to his father-in-law and asks to leave, to go back to Egypt, to the place he grew up. And in Exodus 4, verse 18, Moses' father-in-law Jethro simply says, "Go in peace." That's it. No bargaining, no wheeling and dealing, no attempt to hold on to a valuable shepherd and son-in-law. Just go in peace. Do you remember Jacob's story back in the book of Genesis and his father-in-law Laban? And how he manipulated him and delayed him and changed his wages. And eventually Jacob and his family had to escape from Laban in secret in the middle of the night. Laban grasped, but Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, releases. And it strikes me that the Exodus couldn't truly begin until someone said to Moses, "Go in peace." Liberation required a release. Pharaoh tightens his grip. Laban tightens his grip, but Jethro, who is not even an Israelite, trusts enough to be able to let go. And that connects really powerfully to what Paul says in his epistle to the Galatians, chapter 5. For freedom, Christ has set us free. Do not submit again to a yoke of slavery. Sometimes slavery looks like oppression from the outside, but sometimes it looks like our own need to control outcomes, to secure for ourselves, or to force change by our own strength. Moses had to learn that killing an Egyptian was not the path to freedom. The revolution would belong to God. And Paul reminds us that following rules in our own power won't save us either. Only faith working through love. Only the Spirit growing in us, growing the fruit in us, the love, the joy, the peace, the patience, kindness, self-control, all of those great things. Only God can do that in us. Freedom isn't grasping, it's trusting. It's not control, it's surrender. And once we are set free, what we do with that freedom matters. Do not grow weary in doing what is right, Paul says. Work for the good of all. Maybe this week, the question isn't just where we need deliverance. Maybe it is, where is God asking us to loosen our grip? And where might a faithfully spoken "go in peace" be part of God's liberation story? Thanks for joining me this week, friends. I look forward to seeing you next week for week number 6. Have a great day.